Hi guys, my name is Arin and this is Arin's Voice. Today we're going to be interviewing the youngest member of the United States Congress, Representative Maxwell Frost, to talk about issues related to students. Thank you and I hope you enjoy. Hi guys, today we're here with Representative Maxwell Frost of the United States Congress to talk about issues related to students. So let's get started. Hello Representative Frost, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, do you want
Great.
to get started with the first question?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, the first question I want to ask about is one that I think is extremely important to parents and students alike: gun violence. The news of school shootings sends a wave of fear throughout parents and students. So, I must ask, what do you think we need to do to solve this problem?
Well, I really appreciate this question because gun violence prevention is actually the issue that got me involved in politics in the first place when I was 15. And it was the Sandy Hook shooting. After that happened, it changed my life. I actually went to the vigil in the memorial in Washington, D.C., and that's where I learned about what gun violence was, how big of an issue it is in our communities and in our schools. What are some solutions? Who's against this? Who are our opponents in trying to make our community safer? And who's our allies? And I like to say there's three main things we need to do in this nation to help end gun violence, right? To end gun violence. Number one, we need to pass good common sense gun reform to make sure that guns do not get in the wrong hands, right? So these are things like universal background checks, which most of the country is for. Over 90% of our nation's for it, even NRA members, right? Number two, looking at things like limiting high capacity magazines. Number three, safe storage laws, which are, I would say, like a layup in making sure that we can help end gun violence. Number four, real waiting day periods. Most gun violence in this country is suicide. Every second someone doesn't have the means to end their own life, they're much less likely to go through with it. Waiting day periods save lives. And so having real waiting day periods in this country will save so many lives, just like that, in terms of gun violence. And banning assault weapons. We do not need those weapons of war on our streets, in our communities. If people want to shoot them for sport, you can go to a gun range. You can go do that there. But in terms of buying them and purchasing them, we think that we should end the sales of assault weapons to private citizens. So that's one thing. Number two, we need to adequately fund what's called community violence intervention. These are local groups, and it's so cool. They hire people that are called violence interrupters. And a lot of times, these are guys who, at one point in their life, maybe they used to be shooters before. They've been in and out of jail. They've had that experience, but they changed their life and they become violence interrupters. And we hire them to be a part of the effort to end gun violence. And they identify in a community who's most likely to be shot and who's most likely to shoot somebody. And they actually physically go to these people, speak with them, intervene, and break the cycle of violence. Most gun violence that happens, especially in cities and urban communities, are done by the same group of people. And a lot of times it's in retaliation to something else that happened. When we as a government can fund community-based programs that intervene and stop the cycle of violence, we can help end gun violence. That's number two. Number three is a little broader. Most gun violence come from or what we call crimes of condition. That's not an excuse for people to use a gun to solve the problem, but it means that the more our nation doesn't do anything about poverty, the housing costs, healthcare costs, all these different things that push people to the brink of survival in our own nation, in the richest country on the face of the earth. That's a problem. And it actually increases gun violence. That's why you see less gun violence in communities that are more affluent, that have more resources, that have more money. So to end gun violence, we have to end poverty. To end gun violence, we have to make sure every person has health care. We have to make sure everybody has food on their plate, that we have no hungry children in this country. And we essentially have to work at creating a nation where people don't feel the need to use a gun to solve their problems. We do those three things, we end gun violence.
Okay, I understand. Now, the next question I want to ask you about is the teacher shortage. According to the Annenberg Institute at Brown University, there are close to 36,000 vacant positions in public schools. So, what do you think we need to do to solve this problem?
I'd say a few things. Number one, a big reason why we have a shortage of teachers, especially in our public schools, is because public schools are severely underfunded. And right now, there's an effort by the president, our governor, many other people to defund public schools and make them fail so they can break it and they can sell it. What do I mean by that? Well, for decades, people in government, a lot of really, to be honest, Republicans in government, have wanted to privatize public education, essentially making it so someone gets rich off of the education of our people. And part of this effort is by siphoning money, taking away money from public education and giving it to private corporations. And what that does is it makes our public education system worse. Teacher pay is horrible. Teacher pay in this state is, I think, the worst, or it's one of the worst in the entire nation. And what that does is you have teachers who went to college, in many cases have a lot of student debt, are doing a pretty thankless job where they take their work home with them. Most teachers spend upwards of $700 to $2,000 out of pocket every year to decorate their classroom, to buy stuff for their students. Those pizza parties your teacher has sometimes, most of the time, they're spending that money out of their own pocket, right? And all these things add up. Then you have laws that make it miserable to be in public education. You look at things like the Don't Say Gay law, and it puts teachers in a place where they have to make a decision. I'm not getting paid enough. I have crushing debt. I have a family that I need to take care of. Is there another profession I need to go into so I can take care of my family? And that's the hard decision a lot of teachers are making. I'm the product of public education. My mom just retired after being a public school educator for 37 years. So all these things I'm talking about, I've seen growing up firsthand. My mom taught students with disabilities, special education. I grew up watching her stay up late at night, every night, hours she wasn't really getting paid for, to do IEPs, to call the students, to figure out what else she can do to help her students. So we just need to pay our teachers more. We need to do more to give more resources and capacity to our public schools so they can service the majority of students that go to them. Over 86% of students in this country will go to a public school. And we need to stop this campaign of trying to make our public school fails so we can sell it to the highest bidder.
Understood. The next question I want to ask you about is related to SNAP. I've learned that you've supported SNAP in multiple instances, but recently the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed, which basically cut 3.2 million Americans from the program. So I have to ask, what do you think of this bill and what steps are you planning to take after this?
Well, I don't call it the one big beautiful bill because it is one big ugly bill. It is a horrible piece of legislation. And to put it in perspective for you, what it is doing is it's one of the biggest bills Congress has ever passed in modern politics. And what it does is it takes resources and money from the working class, the middle class, and the poor, and literally gives it to the billionaires and the mega corporations. And that's what happened with SNAP as well. Millions and millions of families, especially single parent households that really rely on SNAP nutritional assistance to be able to feed their kids, are not going to be eligible for it anymore. And it's really disgusting. The whole reason they did it is they gave big tax breaks and tax giveaways to the richest people in this country. And no, I'm not talking about your millionaires. I'm not talking about your 100 millionaires. I'm talking about the billionaires, the people who have so much wealth. You and I can't even imagine how much wealth that is. And there's no problem with people making money in this country. We want everyone to do good. We want everyone to be able to buy a nice car and go on vacation, have a good house, all that. But the problem is, in our country, we have something called wealth inequality, which means that the top 1% of this country, the top 1% owners, own most of the wealth in the nation. That's not fair when you think about the fact that for a lot of these businesses, we've all paid taxes to the roads, right? That transport the products, right? We all pay taxes to the fire departments that protect those businesses and those big corporations. We are all in this together, and people should be able to do well and make a lot of money. But the fact of the matter is, we have a few very greedy people who have a lot of money and influence in our government, who year after year have been trying to rig the system so they can get even richer. And I don't care what party you're part of, it impacts all of us.
I understand. Now, I want to ask a question that's related to wealth inequality. It's related to student loan debts. According to the Education Data Initiative, the United States has close to $1.777 trillion worth of student loan debt, and this is all coming from close to 43 million people. So, I have to ask, what do we do to solve this problem?
Well, there's a few things we need to do, and I'll give you two, right? One is I am a proponent of canceling this student debt. A lot of this debt is actually held by the federal government, not by private companies. And my belief is that the federal government should cancel this debt for all the borrowers for many different reasons. So number one, the way that we're educated and the way that we go into the workforce is a lot different than it was years and years ago. And the fact of the matter is, we have so many young people that are going to college, leaving with a ton of student debt, crippling student debt that is making it so they can't buy a home, they can't start their business, they can't do the things that they want to do. And they were sold this lie that if you go to college for 4 years, you're going to have a job in your field and you're going to be able to do it. And you're going to make so much money that you're going to be able to pay the loan. And that's not true for most people. In fact, right now, youth unemployment, and not just youth unemployment in terms of um, 16 to 18, but youth unemployment, young Americans who graduated college are not able to find jobs in their degree field. There's not enough jobs out there for them in terms of what they studied for and what they got all this debt for. So they were lied to. And I believe our country needs to unshackle that debt from so many people. And it's not just young people. There's a lot of older people with debt as well. We need to cancel that student debt. But it's not just about canceling the debt, but it is also about lowering the cost of college itself. Because if we canceled all the debt tomorrow, in 10 years, we'd be in a bad situation again because the cost of college is too high. This is what I believe we need to do. And actually, President Biden put this forth in his first big Build Back Better bill, and we had just two conservative Democrats in the Senate that got it taken out. We should do tuition-free 2-year college for every student. What does that mean? It means you can go to your local community college, you can go to your local state university, and you can do those first 2 years for your associate's degree tuition free. Now, there's a lot of people say, well, that's radical. That's too much. Well, did you know that high school wasn't always something that was guaranteed to all Americans either? In fact, schooling wasn't guaranteed to all Americans. But we came together and we said, in this new world we're in, we need to make sure that our students are able to go to a public school, tuition free, 6th through 12th grade. And what we're simply saying is, as tech and STEM continue to grow, we're in this age of AI that is going to put people out of their work unless Congress does something about it. I don't have too much faith in that because a lot of Congress doesn't even know how to use a lot of Congress doesn't know about technology. Let me just say that we need to educate our students even more and make sure they're even more ready for this new technological world that we live in, so that way they can be competitive in getting a job. And that means there might be a little bit more schooling for some people, and that we should provide tuition-free 2-year degrees for people. And we had the resources to do it.
Okay, wait, this was just a weird thing I noticed.
Yeah.
Many of the suggestions you made, particularly when it came to student loan debt, I started to draw a lot of similarities with Senator Bernie Sanders. Uh, yeah, so I was wondering, do you agree with him on a lot of issues?
I do agree with him on a lot of issues. I actually used to work for him, so that might be part of that. But look, I mean, I am a progressive, right? And what does that mean? Well, the way I like to put it is progressives throughout the history of this nation are usually just the first people to the biggest and boldest and best ideas. And usually people catch up with us at some point. I'm going to give you an example. There was a time in this country where the majority of our seniors could not retire with dignity. They were living in abject poverty. They did not have the health care that they needed. People were dying a lot earlier, and it was a huge problem. Progressives in our country said, you know what? We need to create a federal program to make sure that people can invest in themselves and our country can invest in them. That way, when they retire, they can retire with dignity. and came up with this thing called Social Security. Man, people said it's such a radical thing. It's so crazy we can't do it. We don't have the resources. And then a certain president came along and championed it. And now Social Security is a fact of life. And if you want to rip away Social Security from people, you will be voted out of office. And I say this to say that there's many things that we have not just been afforded, but that people fought for, that we take for granted, that at one point or another were considered crazy ideas, but really aren't that crazy. Think about healthcare, for instance. Another thing I agree with Bernie Sanders on is that we should all have healthcare in this country. Every person, every American should be guaranteed healthcare. And some people might say that's crazy, yada, yada, yada. But it's not, because we're the only major nation in the world that doesn't do this for all of our people. We've privatized it so people can make money off of it. And guess what? We lose over 60,000 people a year who die because they weren't insured. And I think it's a failure. I think that being healthy should be an American right. And it sounds like might sound like we're really far from it right now, but I don't think we're that far from it, because every year that goes by, people realize that they are closer to living on the streets than being Elon Musk, than being as rich as he is. And that we're all one accident away, one healthcare scare away from being in a completely different situation. But our country has a lot of money. Our economy is a huge economy. And so we have to ask ourselves, how do we prioritize certain things to make sure that we have a line? And we say that by being an American, we will do everything we can to make sure no one falls behind that line. Everyone has housing, everyone has healthcare, everyone has the opportunity to go get a good education. And when you do that, it allows people, it really truly sparks the ingenuity and innovation of Americans, because they can go out and start that business. They can take that leap of faith on an idea, and they don't have to worry about not having money to live. And it's easier said than done, right? And this is part of the reason I ran for office. We're not going to have all this tomorrow. I never promised that when I ran for office. I said, this is what I believe in. This is what I think we should get to. Elect me, and I will fight for it. And that's what I do.
Okay. The next question I want to ask about is literacy rates. In America, literacy rates have been free falling. According to the National Literary Institute, close to 21% of United States adults are illiterate, and 54% have a sixth grade reading level or below. So, what do you think we need to do to solve this problem?
Yeah, I mean, this directly connects to the problem we're having in public education. And we know literacy rates are falling, but not just literacy rates. We're seeing test scores for a lot of different subject areas go down as well. And a big reason for this is we are not prioritizing the education of our students enough. And quite honestly, a lot of this has to be tackled a lot earlier, and we have to be more intentional with families. And economic disparity, access to education, all this kind of stuff adds to it. And the fact of the matter, like I mentioned to you, wealth inequality is at all-time high. How is wealth inequality related to literacy rates? It's directly related to literacy rates, because when you have families struggling to survive, making sure that their student is educated sometimes is not on the top of the priority list, to be honest. Poverty, outdating teaching method, all these kind of things come together and put us in this position where our students are not getting the education that they really need.
Understood. Now, my next question is related to healthcare, which we discussed about a while ago. So, from my research, I have learned that you support programs like Medicare for All. Now, many people say that that's very similar to universal health care. And critics of that idea say that it's going to ruin the quality of healthcare. They often cite countries like Canada, where it takes close to 2 months to meet up with specialists. So, what is your plan on implementing a program like this, which will make sure that everybody will get proper access to healthcare and that the program will run efficiently?
Well, the first thing is, yes, this would be universal health care. And there's a few different ideas out there. The reason I'm for Medicare for all is actually, I believe it is the most sensible and the most practical way for us to get to universal health care. There's a lot of plans out there that have to do with working in our existing system with HMOs and healthcare insurance companies. But if you go out and you go to a hospital, if you go out and you speak with the doctor's office and you ask the hospital, what do you spend most of your money on? They're going to tell you that we spend a lot of money and a lot of capacity on dealing with insurance companies. Insurance companies are the middleman, right? There's you, there's your provider getting the healthcare you need, the actual healthcare, not the insurance, the healthcare. And then there's the insurance companies in between that will dictate for you what specialists you can see. If you can see a specialist, you brought up the specialist thing. I always think it's interesting when people bring that up because in our nation, your insurance company will decide if you can see a specialist. You have to get the referral. And in many different, for specific treatments in medicine, you need a pre-authorization from your insurance company as well. So we get sold this, you have a choice in our current system. I don't think anyone really cares about their health insurance. I don't think anyone's like, I love my health insurance company, but you love your doctor. And under Medicare for All, you'll be able to stay with your doctor, right? And that's real choice. You'll be able to go see a specialist if you need to see a specialist. In our current system, I have a lot of health issues, unfortunately. It takes me 2 months to see a specialist now in our current system, depending on the health insurance you have. If you're ultra wealthy, you might be able to see a specialist a lot sooner. I just tried to make a dermatology appointment 2 months ago, and my appointment was yesterday for that dermatology appointment. It was the soonest one I could get. So I'm not going to say other countries have a perfect system, but our system is immoral. Our system doesn't work. Obviously, we have a broken healthcare system in this country. And Medicare for All, to me, of all the solutions that have been proposed for getting the universal health care, feels the most practical to me. Why? We take the most successful and most popular government program, Medicare. It is the most popular government program. It is the most successful government program as well. And what we do is year by year, for many years, we expand the eligibility by 5 years. So it means every year, the age at which you can qualify for Medicare goes down 5 years. There's a bill that does 10 years. There's a bill that does 5 years. So either or. And then you just keep going until all Americans are covered. And what that does is it allows CMS and Medicare the opportunity to not have all of America on the system at once, but gives us time to get there. It cuts out the middleman, so that way hospitals can spend more resources on you and on your health care versus dealing with health insurance. And then we get to a place where we can bring down the cost of drugs because we have a single payer system that can negotiate those costs of drugs with the pharmaceutical companies instead of us, quite frankly, paying the highest cost for drugs that anyone pays in the entire country. People complain about the Canadian program, but people will tell you a lot of Americans buy their medicine from Canada. Why do they buy their medicine from Canada? Because they negotiate costs there and it's a lot cheaper. So we pay so much per person in this country for healthcare. Not everyone's covered and not everyone will get the care that they need. And I think that's wrong. And I believe in this nation, healthcare should be a human right, not health insurance. Healthcare should be a human right. And everyone should be able to go to the doctor when they're sick and not have to worry about going bankrupt because of it.
Okay, I understand. Now, what advice would you give to students interested in public service?
Well, I would tell people to get involved in a political group and become an advocate, an activist, an organizer locally. I'll be honest. I mean, I was very politically active in high school. I applied to go to American University in Washington, D.C. because I wanted to go into politics. And I got accepted, but I didn't get the scholarship I needed. I got a scholarship. It wasn't exactly what I needed for my family to afford for me to go up there. So I decided to go to Valencia College here locally. And I'll tell you, I don't know anything for sure about hypotheticals, but if I left this state to go to college out of state, I probably would not be a member of the United States Congress right now. Why? because I stayed here in this state and organized here and built rapport with organizers and worked at servicing and fighting for this community um, for a while, for over a decade. And it's rare for a 25-year-old when I was running for Congress to be able to say, I'm not really new to this. I've been doing this work for a while, and I've been doing this work in this community that I want to serve. All politics is local. I'm not saying don't go to DC. Not everyone needs to run for office too. Or you could go to DC and work in Congress and come back and do good work here locally and then run for office. But I wouldn't, I don't think a good goal is one day I want to be a congressman, because goals that are based on a position of power that you're going to sit in have to do more with you versus saying, I want to help people through politics, through government. That's not about you, that's about what you want to do. And I always encourage people to not have goals on sitting in a specific position of power and have goals based on the thing and the impact you want to have on this world. And, for me, I want to help people through music. I'm a drummer, and through politics. And as long as I wake up every morning making decisions in service of that, I can be proud of myself. Right now, that's Congress. Who knows what it'll be in 5 years? I don't know. And quite frankly, I'm not going to stress out over it because we're human. I think we should give ourselves grace. And, we're in this, I call it the grind culture, where it's like you need a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, a 20-year plan, a 30-year plan. And if you don't do it, you're a failure. And that's not how the world works. And I think when you have a foundation on the impact you want to have, life is going to throw punches at you. Life is going to put obstacles in your way. You're going to get over some are going to stop you for a little bit. But as long as you have that foundation of this is the work I want to do in this life right now, you'll be able to jump over those hurdles. You'll be able to bob and weave and not feel like you've made a mistake, but feel like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And I think that's one of the most important things young people can keep in mind in an era where it is very hard to grow up with the scourges of gun violence, with the climate crisis, with the housing costs, with being hungry when you go to college, all these different things that are going on. It's hard to be a young person right now. Don't add to the list.
So finally, I have to ask, if you hadn't went into politics, what different career would you have tried?
Well, I did go to art school. Could be a drummer, could be working in the music industry, but something all my friends tell me is I'd probably be an entrepreneur, which is probably true. When I was in elementary school, I had my own concession stand. I got a loan from my dad or my mom of like $90 to buy the food, and then I would pay them back afterwards. And it got to a place where I was actually hiring. I was hiring my friends and paying them $10 an hour, which for however old 12-year-old is pretty good, to sell food and sell food at the garage sales and at estate sales too. My next door neighbor did estate sales, and she invited me to sell stuff there as well. So probably being a business owner of some kind.
Yeah. If I may, can I add one question in?
Yeah.
So, how does it feel being the only member of Congress who knows how to use TikTok and who's probably seen all of the edits, like the Creed edit and the Pink Panther edit?
Yeah. Well, I'll say we have a few members who can do TikTok well. I do a lot on TikTok. If you've seen my TikTok, I think I'm at about 500,000 followers, and I try to just educate people in politics. But it's funny. I have a lot of colleagues who will come up to me and be like, "What does 6'7" mean?" What's a clanker? Like all this kind of stuff. Like, what does all this mean? And I explain it to them. I don't always know it though. I'm starting to feel old, like I had to learn what all this was from TikTok and not from being in school, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Representative Frost. That was the end of this interview. So, and
Sounds good.
yeah. And guys, thanks for watching. See you later.
See ya. Thank you. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Bye. Also, if you liked the interview, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, make sure to comment down below. Thank you.